So I personally hate short-term solutions. From a business standpoint, I understand them. Sometimes you got to stop the bleeding, for lack of a better term. But I definitely feel like a long-term solution is always the goal. And that's always what I'm looking for.
This is Facility Rockstars, the podcast that celebrates the unsung heroes of our daily lives, facility professionals. I'm your host, Jay Culbert. Join me as we honor these great leaders, sharing stories, insights, and expertise that empower us all to learn and grow together. Facility Rockstars is sponsored by Coludus, operating the way you operate in order to make your life easier. Welcome back to another episode of Facility Rockstars. Today's guest is a creative problem solver and hands-on innovator with more than a decade of experience in the welding and metal fabrication industry. From building aircraft hangars and military training equipment to bridges, aluminum docks, and HVAC systems, he's worked on it all. He started welding at just 6 years old. That early passion turned into a career that's blended deep technical skill with a relentless drive for innovation. After 5 years as a production supervisor, he transitioned into engineering, where he now focuses on inventing and improving products and processes that make work more efficient and impactful. Today, he serves as the Innovation and Facilities Engineer at Novia Corporation. Ben O'Donnell, welcome to the show.
Hi, Jay. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. Thanks for taking the time, investing your time with me, and looking forward to our discussion, Ben.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Of course. Man, you started early, 6 years old as a welder. I'm impressed. I think I was still, playing with the sandbox and crayons. You were welding.
Yeah, I was one of those kids that anything made of metal, anything shining on the side of the road, had to stop the car and pick it up, and ended up with a big pile of it in the basement for a while until my mom found someone to help me do something with it.
Good stuff. Well, we'll get into it. But what I want to ask you first is, you've had different positions, clearly a lot of experience. What's been your biggest lesson learned throughout your journey?
Biggest lesson I've learned is definitely the importance of confidence.
Oh, I love that. Can you say more about it? Let's talk about that a bit.
Yeah, I'm a big believer that if you believe in yourself and you have confidence, everything just gets easier. I definitely had some struggles coming up early years of my career where I didn't have that confidence, and took kind of a lucky bounce for me to eventually get it. But once I did, it was a game changer.
Can you pinpoint the pivot or the time or the moment, or what happened? What changed for you?
Well, I think for me, the industry that I was in, still am in, the metalworking industry, very production based in a lot of places. And being a young kid just coming out of high school, you're still a kid. And had a couple tough situations that I had to navigate, and ended up, losing my job a few times, or moving from place to place to try to find something that was a better fit. And one summer, I just ended up working for a family friend in my hometown doing grounds maintenance at a disc golf course. And it sounds crazy, but it was just working outside, fresh air, enjoyable work. And I did great at it. And it was just kind of a confidence boost just to know I was able to go out there and do what I had to do, and made me feel good about myself. It just gave me that confidence that I could do what I needed to do to succeed, in any job I took on.
That's great. That's a great story too. Like, you find it in the strangest places sometimes. And it's not that it's a strange place, but disc golf, and that's what did it for you. Um, can you give any examples of where that confidence has really manifested or helped you grow?
Definitely. I think that sometimes I think a little bit differently than other people, bosses I've had, coworkers. Everyone has an opinion, right? And just knowing yourself and feeling confident in what you do well, I think makes a big difference. So me understanding my mindset and the capabilities I had made it a lot easier for me to deal with the fact that you can't always make everyone happy. And if you play within yourself, then things are just a lot easier mentally. That confidence is just huge. I think it just helped me really be me.
Can you, it's great. Can you talk a little bit about the statement you just made? You can't always make everybody happy because a lot of people struggle with that, myself included. Being a people pleaser at times. What do you mean by that, and how do you navigate that?
And so it definitely feels like a cliche. It kind of is. But, there's always expectations. You have, the owner of a company has an expectation of his workers to be a certain way, right? To do certain things a certain way. And your direct supervisor or manager also has that same expectation. And I found that if my expectation and my outlook for myself is drastically different from that of boss, it makes my work life a lot harder. You have to be something that you're not. And understanding that those situations come around was big for me because I had to pretty much find a way to understand how I worked and be able to accept the fact that my boss might not like it. And if that's the case, I either needed to prove myself or find somewhere that understood me a little bit better.
You sound very self-aware. Nice work.
Yeah, I don't know if I am, but I try.
That's great. The foundational importance of confidence, self-confidence, and maintaining it, and
Yeah.
quite frankly, like you just said, working with others. I do want to jump though. We have a lot of stuff that we briefly touched on in a previous call, and I want to make sure we honor all these topics for you here. So you talked about addressing coworkers' struggles directly. How would you expand on that? What do you mean by that?
So this is something that really got into more once I got into a leadership role, and also now that I'm in research and development, is that people will have a problem. And usually if one person has a problem, a lot of the time someone else has the same problem. They might just not talk about it. They might just be used to it, whatever the case may be. But if someone brings up these problems, you look into them and it is a repetitive, recurring, reoccurring issue. Um, you address that, you make a solution for it, and it affects a wider scale of people, and everyone usually appreciates it. So I kind of like getting the feedback directly from people whose voices aren't always heard and trying to work with them to solve the issues that they have.
Now, when you say people whose voices aren't always heard, so I understand and the audience gets what you're saying here, people who don't speak up, or if they speak up, they're just not, it's not listened to or acted upon. What do you mean? Or both?
Kind of both. I mean, there's definitely a lot of people who don't speak up. They just come to work, punch the clock, go home, and no one hears anything from them, good or bad, until they get home and maybe say something to their wife or their friends or whatever. Um,
Mm.
but really getting some feedback from people like in my industry, it's the guys out in the shop. I used to be one of them. Then I ended up managing the shop. And then now I'm in research and development. I kind of take it as part of my job to do things that make their life easier. So getting that feedback is huge so that you can really address the problem directly.
Good for you. I'm sure they appreciate it.
Usually, yeah.
Usually, not always.
Yeah, no, there's bad that comes with the good. There's other
Mhm.
things that you have to do for the company, and that can always put a sour taste in someone's mouth. But you try to come back with, little things here and there that make them happy. It's usually pretty good.
Good. Excellent. That sounds fantastic. Now, you talked about solving problems, and then I know we've talked about you solving problems long term, and you stressed the long term portion of that. Can you explain what you mean by that, or maybe give some examples of what you've done or are in process of doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I personally hate short-term solutions. From a business standpoint, I understand them. Sometimes you got to stop the bleeding, for lack of a better term. But I definitely feel like a long-term solution is always the goal. And that's always what I'm looking for. So one example would be, where I work now, Novia, our current growth has been huge over the last 5 or 6 years I've been here. And we do a lot of sheet metal, right? So everything we cut, we've been cutting with a shear. And a shear is just kind of an antiquated way to do it at this point. There's so many better options. Um, One of the faster options being fiber laser. So I pushed for 4 or 5 years to get a fiber laser. And it's a lot of money, obviously. So we got to the point where we needed more cutting capacity. And the quick solution was to get another shear. And I hated that solution because it's a temporary solution. In my mind, it was a bandaid for maybe a year or two. But we did it. And then eventually we did put down that money, got that fiber laser, recently put that in place. And we're still working through some of the growing pains that come along with it. But the progress that that's allowed us to have in just the short period of time that it's been operating is huge. And it's definitely the long-term solution we were looking for.
Great example. It completely changed the technology that what I'm hearing is the technology that's producing your products or the results.
Exactly. Definitely
Mhm.
new software, new equipment. Everyone, again, growing pains, everyone kind of has to change the way they do things because everything's different right from step one. But in the end, we're cutting 4, 5, 6 times faster than we were originally. So can't
Oh,
complain
wow.
about that too much.
Oh, I would imagine that. So the ROI on the investment alone, like the capital investment for the machinery and the software, sounds like it is favorable if you're increasing production by that much.
Yes, definitely favorable. We don't have any concerns there, that's for sure.
Outstanding. I would say now, I don't know if this is any overlapping, but we touched on improving things that have been the same for a long time. And I think the shear is probably a good example of that. Do you have any others that you've encountered?
Yeah, definitely. So, um, this business been in business for about 30 years now, and there's still prints and designs and things that are from when they first opened the business. And, at that point, you've got a much smaller business at the time, less eyes on the designs and the process. And now we've got so many more people available. We've got the manpower, we've got the technology upgrades. Our processes are much better. And we just slowly pick away at all of these things that have been in place for a long time. So the shear is definitely an example of one. But then a lot of my job is the designs. So we've got products that have remained the same for 25 or 30 years. And now we can go and take a look at them with our new technology and a better workforce, things like that. And we can change designs completely, change the way that we build a part, change the materials, change all sorts of things, and just really make it into a more efficient, cost-effective, and better quality product than we were doing previously. One of the things, there's an item called a pocket cover, and we do rooftop curbs. So they're curbs for air handling units. They sit on top of them. A lot of them have springs in them so that when the unit turns on, it doesn't vibrate the building. Well, there's a cover that goes over the spring. So after the whole thing's roofed in on your roof, you don't see the spring. And we've always made that cover out of sheet metal. And because of the process, you had to cut a square piece, notch the corners, bend it, weld it, paint it. And you do a, cost comparison on doing that versus what I looked into was a polyethylene part that was thermoformed. And the way we had been doing it when I showed up 6 years ago costs us about, just off the top of my head, $13 or $14 per cover. And the new polyethylene cover that we just placed our first order for cost us about $3. So
that's significant.
It looks much better, has our logo on it, has the recycling logo on it, made in USA. It's a more professional part. You think that you're using this scrap sheet metal that we had left over from products, and you think you're saving money, but the labor is what's killing you. And that's kind of what we've been able to iron out, small things like that. But in the end, they make a big difference.
You're answering one of the questions I was going to ask you too about your title and the word innovation being in there, right? And you really, I think you're answering it right there, like the innovation of looking at something you've done for a long time. Not only save money, it's more professional. It's well done.
Yeah, thank you. Definitely just trying to turn the page on everything.
So we touched on something else. I'm going to jump to making the day more enjoyable. I'm intrigued with this topic because you laid it out there for me, but I don't know what you mean by it yet, and I don't want to assume. So when you say making the day to day more enjoyable, what do you mean? How do you do it?
A lot of that comes with some of those innovations. Eliminating these things that we've done for so long that are labor intensive and no one likes doing them, kind of annoying, that kind of thing. Figuring out a way to improve those things or eliminate them altogether so that you can focus your time on something better. And that's more me thinking in a mindset when I worked in the shop. I like to think about it. What did I not like doing? What was really annoying? What just didn't work? And if you can limit that or get rid of it, they're going to have a better time out there. So that's something I kind of focus on for that reason.
So you just brought up a topic that's really dear to me too, because a lot of friends, my colleagues, customers hold the philosophy of how can I lead this team without truly understanding what they do. And you just gave a great example of what annoyed you the most, what didn't work, right? And now you're in a leadership role to try, what I'm hearing is to try to eliminate some of those things.
Exactly. That's what I'm aiming to do all the time. If I can make, 1, 2, maybe even 10 or 20 people happier, I'm making money because they're going to work better.
Great mindset. Awesome. So that's going to jump right over to another topic that you brought up, and that's teaching people who are new to the industry. So I guess maybe from the leadership role, it'd be more difficult, but I think it ties together really. Like you came from the production line. Now you're leading that production line. Correct me if my verbiage is off or wrong, please, Ben. And now people who are new to the industry, we all face this, regardless of if we are making drugs or airplanes or whatever we're doing, right? So can you talk about that a little bit? How are you doing this for people new to the industry? Hey, rock stars. If you're tuning into the podcast and are feeling overwhelmed by all the maintenance demands at your facility, don't stress. We've got you covered. Our sponsor, Coludis, is your go-to partner to help you tackle all those demands and get them done right on time, and with top-notch quality. From project planning to execution, Coludis is there to make hard work easy. Visit coludis.com today to get started.
So I have led the production line. I no longer do since I've been moved to engineering, but I still have that mindset of when I did, because I feel like that is where a lot of the money is made in the production. So from a business standpoint, I try to think of that a lot. And when it comes to training new employees, I don't do it as much anymore unless we are short staffed or very busy. I'll still go out on the floor and help people out. And I try to take every chance I can to teach someone the way I do things, the way other people I've met also do them, because what works for me doesn't always work for you. So any insight I can give into a few different techniques is always good for people. They like having the options. But training new people is super important. You know, you're going to have turnover in any industry, whether it's movement for people going to new jobs or, just you're growing like we are and you need more people. People move around, people take advancements within the company, and next guy has to step up. And training new people is a big part of that. And it's definitely one of those things where I remember back to when I was younger, when I had some struggles, and I try to take that into account and be understanding, try to recognize people's personalities more than their results. I think that if you've got the right personality, and you're the right type of person, you've got the work ethic, you're probably still going to make mistakes. You might have some learning experiences and some tough times, but the personality and the work ethic is what you really got to look for. And if you find those people,
because you can't teach that. That's why, right?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I've worked with people who were really good at what they did, but they'd show up late every other day and they didn't really care. And they had all the talent in the world. But if you don't care about your job or you're not trying to better yourself, the company's not going to get your best effort.
How long, or do you know if you pinpointed how long it takes to get someone who's outside the industry like up to speed, right, and in production mode? Have you been able to measure that?
It's really tough. One thing I always liked to do was there was an aptitude test that I had kind of developed when I was hiring people. And it was pretty basic, but it allowed me to know how well this person did certain things, right? And that would help me select a position that I thought they were immediately ready for. Or if they were applying for a position within the company, they came in and their aptitude test did match up to the qualifications they needed for the job, that's kind of a red flag. So that kind of helped. But if you've got someone who's intelligent and wants to learn and is very interested in the work, I mean, you can take someone who's in our industry never welded before and probably get them up to speed. I mean, it's hard to put a timetable on it, but a couple months, we're not talking years. You can get them up to a serviceable welder and fabricator in a couple of months if they're really hungry and driven and want to work it out.
That's impressive. That sounds quick to me. That's great.
Yeah, there's other times where you get someone who, I mean, you can give them all the time in the world and it doesn't always happen. So it's really nice when you find the ones that work out really easy.
I love the way you look at the business. And do you want to say any more about that aptitude test?
Yeah, I mean, for us, everything's heavily based on fractions, decimals, but I also do some pattern recognition stuff, print reading, the ability to, move. I think about rotating like things in your mind. So for us, it's a big thing where you're looking at a print and there's a product on that piece of paper. but that product has multiple sides. Do you know what side, the side that you're not looking at looks like by rotating it around? There's just certain ways to, I think, try to roughly gauge whether someone has that ability right up front or not. And that's kind of what that was developed for, was to kind of pick out and see what people were capable of before we hired them. Right when they walk in the door, what do I think this person can do? And I think so. They're still using that aptitude test out on the floor when they bring people in. And I think that we've only had one or two people completely pass it at 100%. And I'm probably hired 30 to 50 plus people anyway. And only maybe two people have gotten 100%. It's not an easy test, but those people that got 100% are still here. They're great, and everyone loves them.
Would you be able and willing to share what this is? Because I mean, for the benefit of those listening, and people may want to reach out to you. We'll get to that at the end of the show. But like, and how would you get it? Could you share that with us, Ben?
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely, I would say this is an aptitude test that I think would work anywhere where you have like some sort of light fabrication, where you might be reading, tape measures or rulers. Maybe you're programming some machines that have, a CNC machine that's, you have to program in by decimals. It's all decimals and things like that. Converting from a print that has fractions on it. It's how we are sometimes. Some of our prints will be fractional. You guys got to convert them to decimal. Sounds like a basic thing, but a lot of people struggle with it. It just doesn't click for them. So this is definitely a basic aptitude test, but it'll go over tape measure reading, converting fraction to decimal, decimal to fraction, adding decimals, adding fractions, and then some of the pattern recognition stuff. So if anyone feels like it's something that they might be interested in, I'd be more than happy to share it with.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. And how long have you been doing this? When was it rolled out?
Um, Probably 4 years ago now, 2021, 2022. So it's fairly new. It's something that we've used heavily. We had so much growth, opened a second facility, things like that. So through that growth, just needed to hire, a good amount of people. COVID kind of came into play there for a while too, where it was like you didn't have a lot of people coming in. You had to make sure the people that were coming in were ready to contribute. And this kind of, I think, helped us at least find people who had the intangibles, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Smart. Very smart. I want to jump over to a somewhat unrelated topic, and that's we briefly touched on building relationships with vendors and customers. I'd love to hear you expand upon that.
Yeah, absolutely. So vendors is, I think, a little more straightforward for me, because with my role, I'm constantly trying to find the next big thing, or sometimes the next small thing, just an improvement. But that could be changing a vendor that change into a vendor that has the same product that we currently use from another vendor, but just getting better quality or a better price or whatever it may be, better lead time. Sometime you go with someone a little more local, but building that relationship with a vendor. I mentioned the pocket cover that we were doing. And that's a completely new market for us. We don't do anything made of plastic. So that was kind of a new thing. So I had to go out. I had to find these companies that had this technology that would work with us and make this part for us. As simple as the part may be to them, it's a thing for us. And finding the company that kind of understood that, was willing to work with us. And we wanted to stay local. We wanted to be able to have that kind of closer relationship where we can we can drive down there and look at the sample product if we want. We can really control the lead times because we can take smaller shipments because they're an hour away. It's a great thing where we do some stuff with a company overseas, and for certain things that works out great, but your lead times are astronomical, so you have to account for that. And building vendor relationships is just something that for me happens through just my trials and making contact with new places, getting quotes. They reach out to me. I, reach out to them later on with another opportunity, and eventually things just build from there.
And what about the customer side of things? You mentioned that too, building relationships with customers.
Absolutely. So building a relationship with customers is always great. You think of that, I think of that anyway, as a sales thing a lot of the time. The salesman, whatever the business may be, are the ones making contact with the customers most of the time. I like, sounds kind of weird. I like when a customer has some sort of issue. There might be a problem with our product because everything's custom made. Maybe some of the information we got wasn't 100%. So when our product makes it to the job site, it's not always foolproof. It's not always just going to go easy. And it sounds weird to say I like that, but I like that because of the opportunity to meet the customer, talk with the customer, come up with solutions to make things work. And they're usually pretty happy that we're able to do that. Very rarely is there any bad feelings around that. It's just they're looking to get their job done. We're looking to make a product to help them get their job done. And it falls on us to solve their problem. And I enjoy going out there, building that relationship, and, hopefully the feedback they give us is good in the end. And I feel good about having been a part of that.
So I want to weigh in on this too, because you are absolutely keying in on what I personally find so important, because what matters, you're solving something your customer's facing. And it may have been something that occurred on your end, right? And you said it might sound weird, but it's reality. And yeah, a sale is made, sure. What are we going to do when something happens? And you have a solutions mindset clearly, and you're applying that to a lot of your internal customers, if I may, and external. It sounds like.
Definitely.
Yeah. Excellent. If you could pick one thing over the course of the years here that's been the most challenging thing you and your team have faced, what would you say it was?
Well, I kind of don't really like the answer, to be honest with you, but it's the reality of it. Everyone's going to always bring up COVID one way or another because it's something big that's happened in the recent past, right? And with us, business got bigger during COVID. We didn't slow down. It was a big boom for us. And the problem there was that we needed more people, and we needed good people. And you would think that all these other companies, all these other industries were having some issues around that time. You would think there would be an influx of workers available. It wasn't the case. And we had to find qualified people who were able to do the kind of work we do. And it was a real struggle. And with this boom in business, obviously production needs to increase. You need to hit bigger numbers. And when you're struggling to get the people to help you do that, it was a really difficult time. It's definitely tough on everyone. A lot of overtime, a lot of late nights, a lot of Saturdays worked, sometimes even Sundays. And then at the end of every month, it was like putting out fires, just trying to get stuff out the door. And it was definitely tough for everyone. and especially the people who had to put in all that overtime. So I would say that that was kind of one of the bigger, you know, challenges I had to face was just everyone had to do their part to make it happen. It wasn't easy for anyone, and we just struggled through it, but made it work somehow. And, I think it kind of really opens your eyes to trying to keep the best people you can in house because when you go to look for them, they're not always there.
That's interesting what you just said, and I'm kind of tying it back to the thanks for sharing that. By the way, it sounded like it was a lot of heavy lifting, if you will, rolling up your sleeves and just getting it done, like you shared. But like back to the aptitude test too, like get the right people for. I would imagine that's helping your retention rate.
Yeah, I like to think so for sure. We definitely certain positions, you have higher expectations. You hire people for certain jobs and you want to make sure that you're getting the right person in because you can take months to try to train someone. And if it turns out they're just not a fit, then you just wasted months trying to make it work.
Sure.
So try a little bit of screening up front, I guess, really, I think makes a difference.
Really smart. So if you were to give advice to someone in your role or a role similar to yours, Ben, what would that advice be?
Definitely just be yourself. A lot of people say it, but be yourself. It's just easier that way.
It's awesome. Simply put, I love it. Um, so we just learned a ton from you. I mean, you just shared so many awesome gems. And at the end, we're going to ask you to share, I'll ask you to share your contact info. I'm sure people want to reach out and learn a bit more. Um, and you were kind enough to share what you do outside of work when you were 6 years old and you collected all the shiny objects on the side of the road, right? And did you say that your mom helped you find someone or helped you figure out what to do with them?
Yeah, yeah. So my mom was actually, she still is. She's an antique dealer, owns her own antique shop. So she thought it was great, but it got to the point where it was too much stuff. So she made a contact with a local artist who did sculptures, and she's the one who got me into it. You know, that's how it all started.
That's so cool. That's great. So what else do you do outside of work? Like what's Ben all about when he's not being innovative and creating new processes and solving long-term problems at Novia?
Well, I mean, I am definitely a little bit of a gearhead. Love cars. I have a child, so I can't have a ton of cars. That's not really how it works, unfortunately. I wish it was, but got to take it a little easy. But definitely working on cars. Love that. Big into sports, always have been. Played all of them. Now try to take it a little easy. Mostly stick with golf. Play a little bit of men's league. Maybe some basketball or flag football, that kind of thing. Nothing too crazy. And played tennis in high school, and I'm picking that back up again just to kind of stay active. So
You don't hear that a lot.
no, just trying to have fun.
Good for you, man. Any particular manufacturer of vehicle that you prefer?
Well, I mean, I've had vehicles you know, that I no longer have that I'm still very much in love with. But if I had to go out and buy, a brand new car today, I've always been a big Volvo and Volkswagen fan, but I would say Volvo. I'm a big fan of Volvo. Comfortable, reliable, just built solid. Um, but I definitely like the classics. I'm trying to justify being able to buy something with a nice V8, like an older Camaro or something, just to work on. So haven't
Very
gotten
cool.
there yet, but maybe I'll find the time.
Total offshoot like conversation here, but you mentioned Volvo and Volkswagen, and I'm going to group Audi in there too because there's one thing I remember about the older versions of those cars. They always smelled the same. I didn't know if it was the leather or the glue or the manufacturing process. What was that? They always smelled the same.
It's a good question because yeah, it's definitely a leathery. I don't know if it's like the foam under the dash or what it is, but they definitely had a distinct smell for sure. I drive a Volkswagen TDI. I drive a diesel, and it's I guess there's some brand loyalty. I've always liked them.
Good for you, man. My wife's right there with you. Big Volkswagen fan. And our mechanic says, why do you buy Volkswagen? So go figure.
Yeah. Yeah, most of them don't like it.
No. Whether it's getting parts or working on them or whatever, the way the engine breathes, the things I've heard. Great discussion, Ben. What if people do want to reach out? I'm sure they do. How should they do that?
So I do have a LinkedIn. You can find me on there. Benjamin O'Donnell. And then email is always a good way. You can reach me at my work email. That's Ben.O'Donnell at noviacorp.com. And I'm usually pretty responsive. So if anyone has any questions or wanted to talk about anything, definitely open to it.
Fantastic. And I can support that. You're very responsive on email. Very impressive.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
Of course, man. Thank you so much for spending the time and really investing all of your experience and your time and wisdom with us. So really appreciate you being on the show.
Yeah, thanks, Jay. It was great. I appreciate you having me. And I look forward to in my episode and checking out the other ones.
100%. Everyone listening, thank you again for tuning in to Facility Rockstars. If you learned something, if you laughed, tell a friend about the show. Find it on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. And we'll catch everyone next time. It's a wrap. Another episode of Facility Rockstars is in the books. Facility Rockstars is sponsored by Colutus, operating the way you operate in order to make your life easier. Until next time, facilitate and rock on.